Wuthering Heights is a famous Gothic novel written by Emily Brontë. It was published in 1847, the same year her sister Charlotte Brontë published Jane Eyre. Emily lived a quiet and isolated life in the countryside of Yorkshire. Because women writers were not always taken seriously at that time, she published her novels under a pen name Alice Bell. Her sisters also used pen names when they published a book of poetry together in 1846. Sadly, Emily died soon after her novel was published, and during her lifetime, the book received harsh criticism. She never lived to see how famous and respected it would later become. The story of the novel takes place in a wild and lonely area of northern England called the Moors. It mainly focuses on two neighboring houses, Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. The novel tells a tragic and emotional story about love, revenge, suffering, and how people's choices can affect many generations. The story begins with a man named Mr. Lockwood. He is a wealthy but quiet man who rents Thrushcross Grange. Curious about his landlord, he visits the nearby house called Wuthering Heights. The house looks old, cold, and unfriendly, just like the people living inside. The owner is a dark and moody man named Heathcliff. Lockwood finds him strange and difficult to understand. One night, Lockwood gets trapped in a snowstorm and must stay at Wuthering Heights. While sleeping in a room, he finds an old diary that once belonged to a woman named Catherine Earnshaw. As he reads it, he learns about her life and her deep connection with Heathcliff. During the night, Lockwood has a frightening dream in which he sees Catherine's ghost trying to enter through the window. Terrified, he cries out and Heathcliff rushes in. When Heathcliff hears Catherine's name, he becomes emotional and desperate, showing that he still loves her deeply. After this experience, Lockwood falls sick and returns to Thrushcross Grange. While recovering, he asks his housekeeper, Nellie Dean, to tell him the history of Wuthering Heights and the people who lived there. Nellie then begins to tell a long and complicated story. Many years earlier, Wuthering Heights belonged to a farmer named Mr. Earnshaw. One day, he returned from a trip to Liverpool with a poor orphan boy he found on the streets. He named the boy Heathcliff and decided to raise him as his own child. This decision caused jealousy in his son Hindley, who felt replaced. Hindley treated Heathcliff badly and often bullied him. However, Mr. Earnshaw's daughter Catherine quickly became close friends with Heathcliff. They spent most of their time together playing, exploring the moors, and sharing their feelings. Their bond became extremely strong, almost like they were two parts of the same soul. After Mr. Earnshaw died, Hindley returned home as the new master of the house. He brought his wife Frances with him. Hindley took his anger out on Heathcliff and forced him to live like a servant instead of a family member. Despite this, Catherine remained loyal to Heathcliff and they continued to spend their time together. One day, Catherine and Heathcliff went to see the neighboring house, Thrushcross Grange, where the rich Linton family lived. They secretly watched the Linton children, Edgar and Isabella. When they were caught, Heathcliff was thrown out, but Catherine was invited to stay because she was injured. She stayed there for several weeks and learned how to behave like a polite young lady. During this time, she also became attracted to Edgar Linton, who was kind, gentle, and wealthy. When Catherine returned home, she had changed. She was now more refined and cared about social status. Heathcliff felt hurt and worried that she no longer loved him as she once did. Soon after, Hindley's wife, Frances, gave birth to a son named Hareton, but died shortly afterward. Hindley fell into deep sadness and became an alcoholic. He neglected his responsibilities and treated Heathcliff even more cruelly. As Catherine grew older, she faced a difficult decision. She loved Heathcliff deeply, but she believed she could not marry him because he was poor and had low social status. Instead, she accepted Edgar Linton's marriage proposal. She told Nellie that marrying Heathcliff would lower her position in society, even though she felt they were spiritually connected. Heathcliff accidentally overheard part of this conversation and misunderstood her words. Feeling heartbroken and rejected, he ran away from Wuthering Heights without telling anyone. Catherine searched for him desperately in a storm but could not find him. 3 years later, Catherine married Edgar and moved to Thrushcross Grange. Soon after, Heathcliff suddenly returned. He had changed completely. He now looked like a gentleman and had gained money and education. No one knew how he had achieved this. Heathcliff secretly planned revenge against those who had hurt him. He began by pretending to show interest in Isabella Linton, Edgar's sister. He wanted to hurt Edgar by winning her love. Eventually, Isabella fell in love with him and they ran away together, even though Heathcliff did not truly care for her. Meanwhile, Catherine struggled emotionally. She felt trapped between her love for Heathcliff and her marriage to Edgar. When tensions between Heathcliff and Edgar grew, Catherine became very stressed and locked herself in her room. She stopped eating and fell seriously ill. During this time, she was pregnant. Heathcliff secretly visited her one last time. They shared a deeply emotional reunion, expressing both love and pain. Shortly afterward, Catherine gave birth to a daughter named Cathy and died the same night. Heathcliff was devastated. He could not accept her death and begged her spirit to haunt him forever rather than leave him alone. His grief turned into lifelong bitterness and obsession. After Catherine's death, Hindley also died and Heathcliff took control of Wuthering Heights. He treated Hindley's son, Hareton, the same cruel way Hindley had treated him. He raised Hareton without education or kindness. Isabella eventually escaped from Heathcliff and moved to London, where she gave birth to their sickly son, Linton. She later died, leaving Linton under the care of his father. Meanwhile, Edgar raised his daughter Cathy at Thrushcross Grange in a protective environment. She grew up kind and curious but knew nothing about her relatives at Wuthering Heights. One day, while exploring, Cathy accidentally discovered Wuthering Heights. She met Hareton and later her cousin Linton. At first, she looked down on Hareton because he lacked education. However, she became friendly with Linton. Heathcliff saw an opportunity for revenge. He encouraged a romantic relationship between Cathy and Linton because he wanted control of Thrushcross Grange. Eventually, Cathy and Linton fell in love and secretly wrote letters to each other. When Edgar became seriously ill, Cathy visited Linton at Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff forced her to stay there until she agreed to marry Linton. She finally agreed so she could return to her father. Soon after the marriage, Edgar died, and Linton also died shortly after due to illness. Now completely under Heathcliff's control, Cathy was forced to live at Wuthering Heights like a servant. At first, she hated Hareton, but over time she began teaching him to read. As they spent more time together, they slowly developed respect and love for each other. Meanwhile, Heathcliff became increasingly obsessed with Catherine's memory. He believed he could see her ghost and often spoke about wanting to reunite with her in death. His mental state grew worse and he stopped caring about food or sleep. Eventually, Heathcliff died alone. But strangely, he had a peaceful smile on his face, as if he had finally found what he was seeking. He was buried next to Catherine. After his death, the atmosphere at Wuthering Heights changed. Cathy and Hareton planned to marry and moved to Thrushcross Grange, bringing hope and peace after many years of suffering. The novel ends with a sense of calm after generations of pain. The younger characters break the cycle of hatred and choose love, kindness, and forgiveness. Overall, the story shows how powerful emotions like love, jealousy, revenge, and pride can shape people's lives. It also teaches that anger and cruelty can destroy not only individuals but also families for many years. At the same time, it offers hope by showing that kindness and understanding can heal even the deepest wounds. This is why the novel remains one of the most famous and popular love stories in English literature. It is not a simple romantic tale but a deep exploration of human emotions, social class, and the consequences of our choices.